She looked into my camera and asked, "What do Filipinas actually value in relationships?" After interviewing hundreds of women across the Philippines, I've discovered surprising patterns that challenge common stereotypes. Forget the superficial claims circulating on dating forums or repeated by misinformed expats. Today's video reveals authentic perspectives from real Filipinas that will transform how you understand their relationship priorities. What matters most to them might surprise you. And it's not what most foreigners assume. I'll share insights about their true values that could completely change your approach to dating in the Philippines, potentially saving you from serious relationship missteps. The dating landscape in the Philippines. What if everything you thought you knew about dating Filipinas was based on outdated stereotypes? The Philippine dating landscape in 2023 presents a fascinating blend of traditions and modernity that many foreigners struggle to navigate. Today's dating scene in the Philippines exists at a crossroads. In major urban centers like Manila, Cebu, and Davao, smartphones buzz with dating app notifications, while traditional family gatherings still serve as matchmaking opportunities. This duality creates a complex environment where a young professional might swipe through potential matches on Bumble during her lunch break, then attend a family dinner where relatives subtly introduce eligible bachelors. The contrast between Western perceptions and Filipino reality is stark. Many foreigners arrive expecting either ultra-conservative women bound by strict Catholic values or women primarily seeking financial security. The truth lies in a more nuanced middle ground. Modern Filipinas, particularly in urban areas, pursue education and careers while maintaining connections to traditional values that emphasize family approval and thoughtful courtship. Dating apps have transformed how young Filipinos meet potential partners. Tinder reports over 1.6 million active users in the Philippines, while local apps like Pactor and Filipino Cupid continue gaining popularity. These digital platforms create a preliminary screening phase before more formal courtship begins. Consider Maria, a 27-year-old accountant from Manila, who meets matches through Bumble but won't introduce a man to her family until they've dated for at least a month. Online is where we meet, but family approval is still where relationships become official, she explains. A 2022 survey found that 42% of urban couples aged 18-30 first met online, yet 78% still participated in traditional courtship rituals before becoming official. Relationship priorities reveal interesting patterns. Research by the University of the Philippines Sociology Department shows that Filipino women aged 18-35 rank emotional compatibility as their top relationship priority, 67%, followed by shared values, 58%, and financial stability. Physical attraction ranks fifth at 37%. These findings challenge the oversimplification that economic factors dominate Filipino dating preferences. The Philippines experiences one of the most pronounced urban-rural divides in Southeast Asia, creating distinctly different dating cultures. In Metro Manila, dating often resembles Western patterns. Couples meet through apps or social circles, enjoy restaurant dinners, watch movies, and build relationships with relative independence. Dating expenses are increasingly shared, reflecting women's growing economic participation. Meanwhile, in rural provinces like northern Luzon or Mindanao, traditional courtship prevails with practices like harane, serenading, or pamanikin, formal parental blessing. Extended families evaluate potential partners, and courtship involves service to the family alongside romantic gestures. As Liza from Alacos Norte explains, "In our community, a man proves himself by helping my father in the field. Anyone can buy dinner, but not everyone will harvest rice with your family in the hot sun." Economic development further shapes these regional differences. In economically developed areas, women's financial independence has transformed expectations. The Philippine Commission on Women reports that 64% of urban professional women contribute equally or more to dating expenses. These women seek partners who respect their career ambitions and share domestic responsibilities. In regions with fewer opportunities, compatibility in life goals and work ethic becomes crucial for building a stable future together. As Ina, a 26-year-old teacher from Samar province shares, I value a man who works hard and plans for the future. We face enough challenges here. I need a partner who will work alongside me. Cultural concepts like tempuhan, subtle expression of disappointment, and hiya, shame or face-saving, influence relationship dynamics more than grand gestures or physical chemistry. Understanding these unspoken emotional currents is essential as public behavior reflects on entire families, not just individuals. Urban and rural dating preferences manifest in specific examples. In Manila, a successful date might involve an innovative restaurant experience, thoughtful conversation, and genuine interest in a woman's career. A marketing executive from Makati explained, I appreciate when someone researches a unique restaurant that matches my interests. It shows they're paying attention to who I am, not just treating me according to some Filipino girlfriend template. Public displays of affection, while more restrained than in Western countries, have become increasingly acceptable in cities. Rural dream dates center around community events like fiestas or family activities, with couples rarely left alone together early in relationships. A woman from Batangas described her ideal date when he joined our family's fishing business for a day and learned from my father. It meant more than any fancy city date. He showed respect for our livelihood and tradition. Communication styles also vary by region. Urban Filipinas typically appreciate direct communication about relationship intentions, while rural areas often rely on family intermediaries. As one cultural anthropologist notes, in rural communities, a man demonstrates seriousness by bringing gifts to the entire family. The message is, I'm preparing to join your family unit. One universal aspect, across contexts, is the importance of respecting family connections. Even the most independent, cosmopolitan Filipina values a partner who makes genuine efforts to connect with her family members, showing authentic interest in the relationships that have shaped her identity. Understanding Filipino dating culture requires recognizing it isn't simply traditional or modern, but exists along a spectrum influenced by geography, education, economic opportunity, and family background. Each woman navigates her own balance between cultural expectations and personal desires. Cultural foundations of Filipino relationships. Beneath each Filipina's personal balance of tradition and modernity lies a cultural operating system that few foreigners ever truly decode. This invisible framework governs relationship dynamics in ways that can mystify outsiders. Understanding three fundamental Filipino cultural concepts, virtually unknown to most foreigners, may be the difference between becoming her partner or remaining perpetually confused about what went wrong. At the heart of Filipino relationship culture lies pakikisama, a concept that transcends simple translation. Pakikisama represents an intricate social contract that prioritizes group harmony over individual desires. Imagine a family dinner where a disagreement arises. Rather than asserting her opinion forcefully, a Filipina might gently steer the conversation toward common ground, valuing relationship peace above being right. When dating a Filipina, this value manifests in subtle expectations about conflict resolution and social integration. Unlike Western relationships where direct confrontation might be valued as honest communication, a relationship guided by pakikisama emphasizes finding agreement and maintaining peace. This explains why some Filipinas appear overly agreeable in early dating phases. They're honoring a deeply held cultural value. For a foreigner accustomed to relationships built on passionate debate and clear boundary setting, this orientation toward harmony can be misinterpreted as passivity or lack of opinion. In reality, it reflects a sophisticated social intelligence that prioritizes relationship preservation above winning arguments. Equally vital is utang na loob, a concept of reciprocal obligation that extends far beyond simple gratitude. Think of it as an invisible ledger of emotional debts. When someone helps you during difficult times, you carry a responsibility to reciprocate that may last for years. This debt of gratitude creates an intricate web of mutual responsibilities that foreigners often fail to recognize. When a Filipina's family welcomes you into their home or prepares a special meal, they're initiating a meaningful exchange that carries expectations of future reciprocity. The power of utang na loob in relationships creates a dynamic where kindness generates lasting bonds rather than one-time transactions. This explains why helping your Filipina partner's younger brother with schoolwork or assisting her parents with a household project carries more relationship currency than expensive jewelry or luxurious dates. These actions create a positive debt cycle that strengthens family integration, a crucial factor in relationship success. The third cornerstone is haya, encompassing a complex sense of social propriety and face-saving. Imagine haya as an invisible social compass that guides behavior toward maintaining dignity and respect. A Filipina guided by haya carefully guards against actions that might bring embarrassment to herself or her family, creating subtle behavioral codes that many foreigners misread. This value explains why public displays of affection that seem innocuous to Westerners might make a Filipina deeply uncomfortable despite her genuine affection. Her concern is maintaining proper haya within her community. Understanding this cultural dimension reveals why relationship progression often follows different timelines and why certain behaviors are reserved for private settings. Community perception carries extraordinary weight in Filipino relationships, functioning almost as an additional relationship partner. The desire to maintain a positive image influences countless relationship decisions, from appropriate dating venues to suitable partners. A young woman's reputation remains a significant concern, with family honor closely tied to her relationship choices. This explains why meeting at family-friendly locations or group settings often takes precedence over private dates early in relationships. This community orientation manifests in dating behaviors that prioritize relationships viewed favorably by the broader social network. Being introduced to friends and family isn't simply a milestone, it's often a prerequisite for relationship advancement. Presenting yourself respectfully to her community becomes as important as your treatment of her directly. Filipino relationship culture often emphasizes kindness, understanding, and shared values as the foundations of connection. The cultural concepts we've explored naturally direct attention toward character attributes that sustain long-term relationships rather than immediate physical compatibility. This prioritization explains why gestures demonstrating respect for family frequently carry more weight than romantic overtures directed solely at your partner. In a culture where relationships are viewed through a family and community lens, actions that acknowledge this broader context demonstrate deeper understanding. A foreigner who brings small gifts for younger siblings or helps with household tasks signals cultural competence that sets him apart. Family approval represents more than a formality. It's often the decisive factor in relationship progression. Winning over a Filipina's family through demonstrated respect, clear intentions, and cultural sensitivity can open doors that might otherwise remain firmly closed. This is where understanding pagmamalasakit, genuine care demonstrated through everyday actions, becomes essential. Rather than grand romantic gestures, pagmamalasakit manifests in thoughtful behaviors that align with her values. Learning basic Tagalog phrases, remembering important family birthdays, or helping prepare for family gatherings demonstrates this quality. These actions speak volumes in a culture where showing care for her extended family often matters more than lavish attention toward her alone. When a foreigner understands these cultural foundations, his approach to relationship building transforms. A date that considers her need to maintain proper haya while creating special moments will resonate more deeply than one borrowed from Western romantic playbooks. For foreigners navigating relationships with Filipinas, these cultural concepts provide critical insights that transcend the simplistic traditional modern dichotomy. Understanding these deeper cultural operating principles reveals nuanced relationship expectations that exist regardless of a woman's personal position on the traditional modern spectrum. Even the most cosmopolitan, independent Filipina likely maintains some connection to these foundational values, though her expression may differ from more traditionally oriented counterparts. The manifestations of pakikisama, utang na loob, and hiya evolve across generations and settings, but their underlying influence persists across demographic boundaries in ways that continually surprise foreigners. The religious dimension. While cultural values form the social backbone of Filipino relationships, there's a deeper spiritual framework, guiding matters of the heart in ways many foreigners entirely miss. In a country where approximately 80% of the population identifies as Catholic, religion isn't merely a Sunday obligation. It's an active force shaping intimate decisions, relationship milestones, and the very concept of love itself. This religious influence operates beneath the surface of every interaction, creating an invisible boundary system around physical and emotional intimacy that's easy for outsiders to misinterpret. For many Filipinas, their Catholic identity forms the lens through which all relationship decisions are filtered and evaluated. The significance extends beyond mass attendance. When a Filipina considers a potential partner, she assesses him through a spiritual framework that values devotion, sacrifice, and commitment in ways that challenge casual dating norms prevalent in Western societies. This creates a fascinating contrast. Many young Filipinas actively engage with modern dating apps, while simultaneously navigating relationship boundaries established by centuries-old religious teachings. This religious foundation manifests clearly in attitudes toward physical intimacy. The Catholic emphasis on preserving intimacy for marriage creates a cultural environment where many Filipinas view their bodies as sacred spaces. This perspective transforms physical intimacy's meaning, elevating it from a casual activity to a profound spiritual exchange. For many Filipinas, physical connection carries deep spiritual significance that makes the decision about when and with whom to share it a matter of faith. Studies show that most Filipino women have their first sexual experience after marriage, reflecting the powerful influence of Catholic teachings. Even during engagement periods, premarital physical intimacy is generally not approved of for women in the Philippines. This creates relationship dynamics where emotional connection and spiritual compatibility develop first, reversing the physical first progression common in Western dating contexts. Consider Maria and David's courtship. Before they ever held hands, they spent 3 months attending Sunday Mass with her family. Each week, my parents watched how David participated in the liturgy, Maria explains. His reverence during communion told them more about his character than any words could. The traditional courtship ritual of liga exemplifies this faith-influenced approach to romance. Liga is a structured period where a man demonstrates his intentions through consistent actions. These include serenading harana, gift-giving, and spending quality time with the woman's family. The religious foundations of Liga emphasize patience, respect, and commitment, values that align with Catholic teachings about proper relationship formation. Through Liga, a man shows he values the woman beyond physical attraction. He demonstrates devotion through church attendance with her family, participating in novenas, and engaging in spiritual conversations that reveal his moral character. These actions reflect the Catholic understanding that true love requires sacrifice, patience, and spiritual alignment. Many Filipinas express a strong preference for partners who share their religious beliefs, seeing spiritual compatibility as essential to building a lasting foundation. A man's willingness to participate in religious practices often carries more weight than his appearance or financial status. For these women, a partner's faith signals his potential as a family leader who will uphold values they consider essential. Sunday rituals provide structured opportunities for courting couples to observe each other in family contexts and evaluate spiritual compatibility. Carlos and Anna strengthened their relationship through these weekly gatherings. After Mass, we join her family for lunch. Those meals taught me her family's values through their prayers and conversations. I learned more about Anna during those Sundays than during our private dates. The religious calendar shapes relationship development through its cycle of celebrations. Christmas festivities, Holy Week observances, and feast days create natural moments for deepening emotional connections through shared spiritual experiences. For many couples, participating together in Simbang Gabi, 9 pre-dawn masses before Christmas, provides opportunities for meaningful conversation that strengthen their bond. These celebrations offer frameworks for expressing devotion beyond words. When a courting couple attends Visita Iglesia together, they practice commitment, patience, and shared sacrifice, qualities that translate directly to relationship success. The spiritual dimension of Filipino dating culture often puzzles foreigners who may interpret hesitancy about physical intimacy as disinterest or conservatism. What they miss is the profound connection between faith and identity for many Filipinas. When physical boundaries are established, they're often rooted in a deeply held belief that intimacy has spiritual significance that shouldn't be casually diminished. This religious influence creates a dating landscape where trust and emotional connection typically precede physical intimacy by a considerable margin. Physical expressions evolve gradually as the relationship deepens, with each step carrying greater significance because of its spiritual context. A first kiss might represent a more meaningful milestone than in cultures where physical contact is established more casually. For many Filipinas, this gradual progression honors what they consider sacred. Physical intimacy becomes more meaningful when contextual to spiritual commitment, creating deeper emotional bonds that extend beyond physical attraction. Catholicism also brings family approval into relationships, seen as reflecting God's will. The voice of parents is the voice of God, captures this spiritual dimension of family involvement. Courting couples often pray novenas together, seeking divine guidance, demonstrating how spiritual practices integrate with decision-making about love. Religious values establish expectations about relationship permanence that impact dating behaviors. With divorce remaining illegal in the Philippines, relationship choices carry profound life consequences. This legal reality, rooted in Catholic teaching, means that dating decisions are approached with a seriousness that reflects their potentially lifelong implications. Anatomy of the dream date. With relationships carrying such spiritual weight, you might assume the path to a Filipina's heart requires lavish displays of affection and expensive outings. Yet the truth about what constitutes a dream date for most Filipinas shatters this common misconception in ways that will transform your approach to courtship. Foreign men often arrive in the Philippines with preconceived notions about impressing local women. They book tables at the fanciest restaurants in Manila, arrange helicopter tours over chocolate hills, or splash out on shopping sprees at high-end malls. While these grand gestures might create temporary excitement, they frequently miss the mark on what truly resonates with a Filipina's heart. Our extensive interviews with Filipino women reveal a striking disconnect between showy displays and what actually makes a date memorable. The evidence consistently points to thoughtfulness and genuine connection as the fundamental elements that make a date special, not the price tag attached to it. This insight directly challenges the assumption that financial extravagance is the primary pathway to creating a meaningful impression. What makes a truly unforgettable date for a Filipina? Consider Maria from Cebu, whose eyes lit up describing her most cherished dating memory. He remembered I mentioned wanting to try this small bakery that makes traditional pandesal the old-fashioned way. When he picked me up, he had planned a whole morning around visiting that bakery, then taking the bread to a viewpoint to watch the sunrise. The aroma of that freshly baked bread mixing with the golden hues of daybreak created a moment I'll never forget. It wasn't expensive at all, but the fact that he listened and planned something so specific to my interests meant everything. This experience perfectly illustrates how attentiveness trumps opulence. The dream date for most Filipinas begins with thoughtful planning that demonstrates you've been paying attention. This means remembering her favorite cuisine, noting a movie she's mentioned wanting to see, or recalling a specific location she's expressed interest in visiting. These personalized touches communicate that you value her as an individual with unique preferences. This attentiveness extends beyond simple preferences to understanding her comfort level. A woman from a traditional family might feel uneasy with an intimate dinner for two as a first date, preferring something more casual and public. Recognizing these boundaries shows cultural sensitivity that resonates deeply. Meaningful conversation forms another critical component of the ideal date experience. While Western dating sometimes emphasizes activities over dialogue, Filipinas typically place extraordinary value on conversations that explore family connections and future aspiration. Asking thoughtful questions about her relationship with her parents, her career goals, or her dreams demonstrates interest in more than a casual encounter. These conversations serve as a window into your character and intentions. A Filipina is often evaluating whether you share her values regarding family and commitment, aspects that hold particular importance in a culture where relationships are viewed through a long-term lens. Your willingness to engage in these topics signals potential compatibility beyond physical attraction, rather than dominating discussions with stories about yourself. Showing genuine curiosity about her world creates a stronger connection. This balanced exchange allows her to assess whether you're truly interested in her as a person. Successful date ideas often blend cultural experiences with personal attention, taking her to a historical site she hasn't visited, despite living nearby, shows thoughtfulness, while creating an opportunity to learn about Filipino heritage together. Adding personalized elements to these outings elevates them further, perhaps bringing her favorite snack or incorporating a stop at a location she's mentioned. These gestures transform a generic experience into something uniquely tailored to her. The setting significantly influences the experience in ways that might differ from Western expectations. Public settings are generally preferred in early dating stages, particularly for traditional Filipinas. Unlike Western contexts where intimate settings signal romantic intention, in the Philippines, they can create discomfort or suggest inappropriate expectation. Group dates or family-inclusive outings play a much larger role in Filipino dating culture. Being comfortable meeting her friends or relatives early in the relationship and engaging genuinely with them creates a positive impression that extends beyond your date. This dynamic reflects the collective nature of Filipino society, where relationships exist within a broader social context. Jenny from Manila shared, "My most special date wasn't planned at all. We got caught in a sudden downpour, and instead of being frustrated, he made the best of it. We ended up having instant noodles at a small covered market while watching the rain. He was so positive and made me laugh the whole time. I realized then that his attitude mattered more than any fancy restaurant." Angelica from Davao recalled a stargazing adventure. "He drove me 2 hours to a mountain viewpoint where we could see the night sky away from city lights. The blanket of stars above us, coupled with the warmth of hot chocolate he'd brought in thermoses, created this magical moment. The fact that he planned something specifically around my photography interest showed he really paid attention when we talked." These stories highlight a crucial insight. Dates that leave lasting impressions are those where a man demonstrates genuine effort to create an experience that resonates with her specific personality. The emotional investment demonstrated through thoughtful planning and authentic presence far outweighs financial expenditure. This doesn't mean Filipinas don't appreciate nice restaurants or special occasions. Rather, without the foundation of genuine connection and consideration, expensive outings feel hollow. A lavish dinner where you spend the entire time distracted won't create a positive impression, regardless of the price. For men accustomed to dating contexts where material displays carry significant weight, this shift in focus can be refreshing. Creating meaningful connections requires attentiveness, emotional intelligence, and genuine interest in learning about her world. Qualities that align perfectly with Filipino cultural values that prioritize sincerity and meaningful connections over materialism. Physical connection in Filipino dating culture. Beyond these emotional connections lies a territory where cultural differences become most pronounced and potentially most problematic. In Filipino dating culture, physical intimacy follows a set of unwritten rules that directly contradict what many Western men assume to be universal. This silent language of boundaries has the power to strengthen or destroy budding relationships before they truly begin. The taboo nature of discussing physical intimacy openly in Filipino society creates an immediate challenge for foreign men. While Western dating cultures often encourage direct communication about physical boundaries and expectations, such conversations are frequently avoided in the Philippines. Their significance is precisely why they're approached with such caution and indirectness. Consider this scenario. Mark, an American visiting Manila, meets Sophia at a community event. After 3 enjoyable dates, Mark leans in for a kiss goodnight. Sophia stiffens, turns her face slightly, and quickly says she needs to get home. Mark is confused, wondering if he misread her interest. In reality, Sophia is very interested, but felt the gesture was premature in their relationship. Rather than explaining this directly, she communicated through body language, and a quick subject change, signals Mark missed entirely. This communication gap leads to one of the most common relationship pitfalls for international couples. A foreign partner might interpret silence about physical boundaries as openness or lack of clear preferences, when in reality, the absence of discussion itself communicates important cultural expectations. Understanding this paradox is essential. The topics least discussed often carry the most significant relationship implications. Western and Filipino expectations about physical progression differ fundamentally. In Western dating context, physical chemistry is considered an early indicator of compatibility, sometimes evaluated within the first few dates. The progression often moves from holding hands to kissing to greater intimacy before any formal commitment has been established. Conversely, Filipino relationship norms follow a conservative progression, a gradual unfolding of physical connection that prioritizes trust and emotional bonds first. Physical attraction matters, but its expression follows a different timeline and carries different cultural meanings. This conservative progression reflects fundamental values around respect and building meaningful connections. The approach centers on the belief that physical intimacy gains its deepest significance when it follows from established emotional bonds and mutual trust. For many Filipinas, gestures Westerners might consider minor, like holding hands or a kiss on the cheek, often carry greater significance than foreigners might assume. What makes navigating this landscape particularly challenging is how attitudes vary across different age groups in the Philippines. The country is experiencing significant generational shifts in values, creating a spectrum of perspectives rather than a single unified viewpoint. While traditional values remain influential, particularly in older generations, younger Filipinos in urban centers are increasingly adopting more progressive attitudes. The intergenerational differences are most pronounced in major cities, where younger Filipinas may be more open to Western-style dating practices. However, even among younger, more cosmopolitan Filipinas, family and religious influences still shape individual choices regarding physical intimacy. A young woman might personally hold more progressive views while still adhering to traditional expectations due to family pressures or community standards. Public displays of affection. PDA highlight how Filipino cultural norms diverge from Western expectations. In many Western countries, couples openly express affection through kissing, embracing, or holding hands in public spaces. In the Philippines, particularly outside major urban centers, such displays are often viewed as inappropriate or potentially embarrassing. Foreign partners should be particularly attentive to a Filipina's comfort level with public displays of affection, allowing her to take the lead rather than imposing Western norms. What might be acceptable in Manila could be scandalous in smaller communities, and a woman's understanding of local social boundaries will always be more nuanced than a foreigner's. This stems from different cultural values around public behavior. Modesty and avoiding undue attention remain important social considerations, especially for women. A gesture that might seem innocently affectionate to a Western man could potentially damage a Filipina's reputation in her community, creating real social consequences that outlast the relationship itself. The language of consent and establishing boundaries in Filipino dating relies heavily on nonverbal cues rather than explicit conversations. While Western dating increasingly emphasizes clear verbal consent, Filipino culture often communicates boundaries through subtle signals, body language, and contextual cues. Learning to read these nonverbal signals becomes essential for foreign partners. A slight physical withdrawal, a change in facial expression, or a shift in conversation topic might communicate a boundary more clearly than words. Respecting these indirect communications demonstrates cultural awareness and builds trust. For successful relationships with Filipinas, building trust consistently precedes deeper physical connection. This trust building involves demonstrating respect for her cultural values, showing consistent behavior over time, and proving yourself trustworthy in emotional matters before physical ones. Foreign men who rush physical intimacy often undermine the very foundation needed for a relationship to flourish. Physical chemistry in Filipino dating culture is expressed differently and follows a different developmental timeline. While immediate physical attraction plays a role, as it does universally, its expression is typically delayed until a stronger emotional foundation has been established. This creates relationships where physical intimacy becomes an extension of existing emotional bonds rather than a precursor to them. This approach reflects broader Filipino values around commitment and loyalty. Physical intimacy is seen as carrying deeper meaning, as a demonstration of commitment. Patience in physical progression isn't about repression or lack of interest. It's about building a relationship founded on something more enduring than physical attraction alone. This patience often results in deeper, more meaningful connections when physical intimacy does develop. Generational shifts in dating preferences. While these traditional values around physical intimacy remain powerful, a silent revolution is reshaping Filipino dating preferences across generations. In a country where 65% of women now prioritize emotional consistency and reliable partners with clear goals, the dating landscape has fractured along generational lines. Yet beneath these shifting preferences lies a surprising pattern that connects even the most traditional baby boomer to the most progressive Gen Z Filipina. The generational categories in the Philippines follow similar patterns to Western countries, with baby boomers born 1946-1964, Gen X 1965-1980, Millennials 1981-1996, and Gen Z 1997-2012, each bringing unique perspectives to relationships. These generational divides take on distinctive characteristics when filtered through Filipino cultural contexts. A dramatic shift, evident across Filipino generations, is the emergence of micromance. According to Bumble's 2025 Global Dating Trends Report, 97% of Filipino singles value smaller, everyday gestures as expressions of love. Consider how 22-year-old Maricel treasures her boyfriend, sending her encouraging texts before important exams or saving her favorite snack for their movie nights. Meaningful acts that create lasting connections. This micro-romance particularly resonates with Gen Z and younger millennials, who grew up with digital communication. For these generations, a thoughtful message sent at just the right moment carries tremendous emotional weight. The intimate, frequent nature of these small gestures creates a continuous connection stream that older generations might not have prioritized similarly. When my mother was dating my father in the 1970s, she expected formal visits to our home, where he would bring gifts for the entire family, explains Elena. But my daughter considers it more romantic when her boyfriend remembers which coffee shop has her favorite pastry, or sends her memes that reference their inside jokes. Social media has transformed how younger Filipinas approach dating. Gen Z singles often document their dating experiences publicly through DWM or Date With Me content. This transparency stands in stark contrast to the private, family-mediated courtships of previous generations. Younger Filipinas increasingly rely on personality tests and astrological compatibility to assess potential relationships, methods that might baffle older generations who trusted family networks to vet potential partners. For Gen Z, intimacy has expanded beyond traditional understanding. The Bumble report reveals that 52% of Gen Z singles in the Philippines consider geeking out on shared interests a legitimate form of intimacy. Younger generations form connections through mutual passions, whether anime, environmental activism, or niche hobbies, rather than only through traditional courtship rituals. Economic independence has fundamentally transformed relationship dynamics for younger Filipino women. While previous generations often entered relationships with economic dependency as a given, today's younger Filipinas approach relationships from positions of financial autonomy. This economic self-sufficiency creates more equal power dynamics, with decisions more likely made jointly rather than defaulting to male authority. For younger Filipinas, financial contribution to the relationship is increasingly a shared responsibility, a departure from traditional gender roles that still influence older generations. Global media exposure has similarly transformed how younger generations conceptualize romance. Through international media and travel opportunities, millennials and Gen Z Filipinas have witnessed diverse relationship models that contrast with traditional Filipino norms, broadening their romantic expectations. The financial independence many younger women now enjoy has completely changed what they look for in relationships, explains Dr. Maria Santos, a sociologist specializing in Filipino family dynamics. When a woman can support herself, she prioritizes emotional compatibility, shared values, and mutual respect. The generational contrast becomes apparent when examining relationship priorities. Baby boomers and older Gen X Filipinas typically prioritize stability, family respect, and traditional roles, while younger women have expanded their requirements without abandoning these foundations. My Lola always tells me she married my Lolo because he was respectful to her parents and had a secure job, shares Jasmine, 23, from Manila. I want those things too, but I also need someone who understands my career ambitions, shares household responsibilities, and connects with me emotionally. The foundation is the same, but the house we're building looks very different. Amid these changes, the Bumble report found that 66% of Filipino singles across generations are drawn to authentic dating content, celebrating both relationship highs and lows. This preference for genuineness suggests that while romance expression evolves, the desire for authentic connection remains consistent across age groups. This evolution creates fascinating juxtapositions in contemporary Filipino dating. Traditional courtship rituals like pamanakan, formally asking parents for their daughter's hand, persist alongside video call dates and relationship-defining conversations conducted through text messages. Multi-generational households create situations where traditional and progressive relationship values must coexist under one roof. Despite these differences, certain core values transcend generational divides. Family remains central to relationship decisions across all age groups. Though how family influence manifests may vary, respect forms the foundation of successful relationships. Even as younger generations renegotiate what respectful treatment entails, commitment continues to be highly valued, though the path to formalizing that commitment may follow different timelines than in previous decades. What makes navigating these generational differences particularly challenging for foreign partners is their subtlety. A Filipina might simultaneously hold traditional values about family involvement while embracing progressive ideas about gender roles. Understanding which generation your Filipina partner belongs to provides crucial context for interpreting her expectations and communicating effectively about relationship matters. Successfully navigating these differences requires attentiveness, cultural awareness, and willingness to adapt, whether you're connecting through handwritten letters or heart emojis. Beyond material, meaningful gestures, beyond mastering communication lies something even more fundamental to winning a Filipina's heart. While many foreign men believe their financial resources are their strongest asset, countless relationships falter despite generous spending. The truth is that Filipinas value something money simply can't buy. Pagmamalasakit, a profound concept that transforms ordinary actions into powerful expressions of love. This misconception about impressing Filipinas with material displays runs deep among foreigners. Many arrive in the Philippines convinced that expensive gifts, luxury dining, and flashy displays of wealth will instantly win favor. The reality differs significantly. While financial stability matters in any relationship, the notion that Filipinas primarily respond to financial demonstrations misses the essence of what creates genuine connection in Filipino culture. Pagmamalasakit, showing genuine care through consistent, thoughtful actions, forms the cornerstone of meaningful relationships with Filipinas. This cultural value emphasizes demonstrating deep understanding and concern for another person's well-being through daily behaviors. The power lies in the accumulation of small, genuine moments that show you truly care about her as a person. Consider Marina, a teacher from Baguio, whose heart was touched when her partner noticed her mother's garden struggles during the dry season. He arrived with drought-resistant plants and spent an afternoon helping her mother replant everything. This response to a casual comment demonstrated both attentiveness and care for her family's well-being, embodying pagmamalasakit perfectly. These everyday expressions of thoughtfulness create stronger emotional bonds than extravagant displays. When a man remembers her favorite snack during a stressful work week, notices when she needs quiet time, or anticipates household needs before they become problems, he demonstrates care that resonates deeply. Such actions reveal his character and commitment. What elevates these gestures is how they acknowledge Filipino values. Actions that recognize the importance of family, show respect for elders, or honor traditions demonstrate cultural awareness beyond surface-level attraction. Remembering to bring small pasalubong for her siblings or helping with household chores when visiting her parents shows recognition of family-centered values. Family-oriented acts of service often create more profound impressions than purely romantic gestures. Elena, a bank employee from Cebu, shared how her partner offered to drive her father to medical appointments while she was away on business. "Taking care of my family is taking care of me," she explained, highlighting how supporting a Filipina's family obligations demonstrates understanding of her priorities. For foreigners unfamiliar with Filipino culture, this family-first approach might seem surprising. While Western dating contexts typically center romance on the couple, Filipino culture values demonstrating care for a woman's family as recognition of her most important relationships. Helping during family celebrations, showing respect to elders, or offering practical assistance creates stronger bonds than candlelit dinners or expensive jewelry. The value placed on consistent small attentions rather than grand gestures reflects a distinctly Filipino approach to relationships. Reliability and consistency signal genuine commitment, like a bamboo tree, growing steadily, bending without breaking during storms, providing reliable shade and support year after year. A study of cross-cultural relationships found that Filipino women consistently rated partners higher on relationship satisfaction when they demonstrated regular, thoughtful behaviors rather than occasional extravagance. This difference was particularly pronounced among women with strong ties to traditional family structures. Specific actions that embody pagmamalasakit include remembering important family occasions, not just his partner's birthday, but also her parents and siblings. Similarly, checking in during challenging times without being asked shows attentiveness to her emotional state. Practical support resonates deeply, as Jasmine from Davao described. "When I was overwhelmed with work deadlines, he organized my apartment, prepared meals for the week, and created a peaceful space for me to focus. He saw what I needed before I could ask." This anticipation of needs exemplifies the care central to pagmamalasakit. The humility behind these gestures matters equally. Filipinas value men who perform thoughtful acts without seeking recognition or praise, reflecting broader cultural values of humility and sincerity. Actions performed with genuine concern rather than expectation of reward create the strongest impression. Foreign men sometimes struggle with this concept, particularly those from cultures where direct expression and recognition of efforts is expected. Understanding that the reward lies in the strengthening relationship rather than explicit acknowledgement requires a perspective shift. The quiet appreciation expressed through increased trust often indicates deeper impact than verbal praise. Consistency builds trust over time, creating security that occasional grand gestures cannot match. Anna, a nurse from Manila, emphasized this reliability when choosing her partner. He never promised extravagant things, but showed up consistently with small kindnesses every day. I knew I could count on him through life's challenges. For men serious about building meaningful relationships with Filipinas, focusing on demonstrating genuine care through consistent actions creates stronger foundations than material displays. This means observing what matters to her specifically, rather than making assumptions based on stereotypes. Learning to recognize opportunities for demonstrating pagmamalasakit becomes easier with cultural understanding and attentiveness. Following up on mentioned family concerns, finding practical ways to ease daily burdens or supporting her aspirations shows genuine investment in her well-being. The beauty of pagmamalasakit is that it requires only genuine concern and attention, not wealth or extravagance. This makes meaningful connection accessible, regardless of financial resources. A man who demonstrates consistent care will typically create a stronger impression than one who substitutes expensive gifts for personal investment. Debunking common misconceptions. That commitment to genuine care stands in stark contrast to the persistent stereotypes that continue to undermine cross-cultural relationships. When Filipinas themselves were asked about their experiences dating foreigners, nearly 80% reported encountering the same harmful misconceptions, assumptions so fundamentally flawed they sabotage even the most promising connections from the start. What are these damaging myths about Filipinas in the dating world that create active barriers, preventing meaningful connections? Let's examine the most common misconceptions and why they're harmful to building authentic relationships. Filipinas primarily seek financial security from foreign partners. 3. Filipinas have lower standards for physical attraction. Filipinas are inherently submissive. 4. Filipinas lack educational achievements and career ambitions. Perhaps the most prevalent misconception is that Filipinas primarily seek financial security when looking for foreign partners. This oversimplification ignores the complex motivations that drive relationship choices. While economic considerations exist as they do in relationships worldwide, they rarely function as the primary driver. This stereotype stems partly from economic realities in the Philippines, where US $10 daily income represents a decent wage in many areas. Foreigners often make the logical but flawed leap that earning more automatically makes them desirable partners, based primarily on their financial status. The truth is far more nuanced. Filipinas enter relationships for many reasons: supporting their families, personal fulfillment, raising children, and meeting their partner's needs emotionally and practically. Financial considerations exist within this broader context of relationship goals, not as isolated motivations. Another damaging stereotype portrays Filipinas as inherently submissive. This misconception typically arises from cultural misinterpretations. What foreigners perceive as submissiveness is actually the cultural emphasis on politeness, respect, and maintaining harmonious relationships. When we reduce Filipinas' relationship choices to economic calculations, we strip away their agency and individual desires. This perspective fails to recognize the rich, multifaceted decision-making process that actually drives their relationship choices. The Filipino value of pakikisama, prioritizing harmonious social interactions, shapes how many Filipinas engage in relationships. Respectful behavior, especially toward elders, represents a cultural cornerstone rather than a sign of subservience. By confusing cultural expressions of respect with submissiveness, foreigners misinterpret healthy relationship dynamics and develop unrealistic expectations. The stereotype about Filipinas having lower standards for physical attraction assumes they find all foreigners inherently attractive. or are willing to compromise on appearance for other benefits, both assumptions rooted in problematic perceptions. Filipinas, who demonstrate cultural values like consideration and respect, maintain independence and opinions. They're practicing important relationship skills valued within their culture. This misreading creates expectations destined for disappointment, as the assumption of submissiveness clashes with the reality of strong, independent women navigating relationships according to different cultural norms. In reality, Filipinos have specific beauty standards, often influenced by the country's colonial history. Many Filipinos express preferences for fair skin and certain facial features, standards influenced by Spanish and American colonial presence. These preferences reflect unique cultural beauty ideals rather than indicating a lack of discernment. This assumption ironically reveals more about foreigners' perceptions than Filipinas' actual preferences, suggesting a belief that Filipinas should feel fortunate to attract foreign attention regardless of appearance. A perspective undermining mutual respect essential for healthy relationships. Another pervasive stereotype overlooks the educational achievements and career ambitions of Filipinos. This misconception portrays Filipinos as primarily dependent, seeking relationships as economic solutions rather than partnerships. The reality contradicts this narrative completely. The Philippines consistently ranks high in gender equality in education, with women outnumbering men in both college enrollment and graduation rates. Filipino women demonstrate remarkable entrepreneurial spirit, owning approximately 88% of businesses throughout the country. Filipinas are known for their strong work ethic and commitment to providing for their families, often serving as primary breadwinners. This stereotype of the dependent Filipina dismisses the significant economic contributions women make to Filipino society and their families. Dr. Annalisa Enriel, a Filipino professor, notes that some foreign men actively misrepresent themselves on dating platforms when seeking partners who fit their erroneous perception of the subservient Filipina. She highlights how certain Filipino cultural values can be exploited, potentially creating unhealthy relationship dynamics. Cultural concepts like utang na loob, debt of gratitude, and pakikisama, maintaining smooth interpersonal relationships, represent meaningful values within Filipino culture. However, these same values can be weaponized when one partner views them as tools for control rather than foundations for mutual respect. The most successful relationships between foreigners and Filipinas develop when both partners approach each other as individuals rather than representatives of cultural stereotypes. This means recognizing that Filipinas have diverse motivations, preferences, and relationship goals shaped by individual experiences, family backgrounds, and personal values. Understanding these stereotypes and actively working to overcome them represents an essential first step toward building authentic relationships with Filipinas. Successful cross-cultural relationships require genuine curiosity and willingness to understand individual preferences, values, and goals. Overcoming these stereotypes requires conscious effort and willingness to challenge assumptions. It means approaching relationships with humility and openness. When foreign men make this effort, they discover the rich potential for genuine connection that exists beyond cultural stereotypes. Cultural awareness helps navigate generational divides. But there's one aspect of Filipino culture that confuses even the most prepared foreign suitors. Why do so many Filipinas say maybe when they mean no? And how can understanding this indirect communication style transform your dating success across all age groups? Communication, the true foundation. The answer lies in what communication researchers call high-context culture. In the Philippines, what remains unsaid often carries more weight than direct statements. This creates a fundamental disconnect for foreigners who operate on entirely different principles. Western communication values clarity and directness, while Filipino communication prioritizes harmony and face-saving, creating a communication dance where partners often move to different rhythms. This difference represents a complete paradigm shift in how relationships develop. When a Filipino responds with maybe or we'll see to an invitation, A Western man might interpret this as genuine uncertainty or positive interest. Consider this scenario. Filipina. Maybe I might be busy with family that day. Foreign suitor. Would you like to have dinner this Saturday? Foreign suitor's interpretation. She's interested, but checking her schedule. The subtle shift in eye contact, slight hesitation in her voice, and the mention of family without offering an alternative date are signals that would be clear to a Filipino, but often missed by foreigners. The misunderstanding stems not from language barriers, but from contrasting cultural frameworks for expressing thoughts and feelings. Actual meaning: she's politely declining the invitation. These communication differences explain why promising relationships between Filipinas and foreigners falter despite apparent compatibility. The Western preference for getting to the point can come across as blunt in Filipino culture. A direct no or explicit criticism might seem honest to a foreigner, but feels unnecessarily harsh to a Filipina who values smooth social interactions. Learning to read between the lines becomes essential for anyone serious about dating a Filipina. This skill extends beyond decoding verbal responses. It involves picking up on subtle shifts in tone, changes in body language, and understanding contextual clues that telegraph true feelings. If a Filipina becomes suddenly formal or consistently mentions being busy without suggesting alternative plans, these are likely signs of declining interest. Even if she never explicitly says so, this communication style permeates every aspect of relationship building in Filipino culture. When discussing future plans or expressing desires, many Filipinas communicate through hints and suggestions rather than clear statements. A Filipina might express concern about a friend's financial struggles when she's actually worried about her own financial security with you. Understanding these indirect patterns allows foreign partners to address underlying concerns rather than just responding to surface-level conversations. The concept of laminin adds another layer to Filipino communication. This playful, affectionate teasing creates emotional bonds in ways that direct expressions of affection cannot. While Western romance emphasizes serious declarations of love and explicit compliments, Filipino relationships frequently build intimacy through lighthearted banter and good-natured teasing. One Filipino relationship expert explains, "When a Filipina engages in lambangan with you, she's creating a private language of affection. This playfulness is a cultural avenue for expressing deep emotional connection. Foreigners who respond to this playfulness with overly serious interpretations miss an opportunity to strengthen emotional ties through this culturally significant form of communication." How you communicate about a Filipina's family reveals your understanding of her values and cultural identity. In Western dating, family discussions might be postponed until the relationship becomes serious. In Filipino culture, showing genuine interest in her family from early conversations demonstrates respect for her core values. This means expressing sincere interest in family dynamics, traditions, and important events. A communication approach that resonates with Filipinas involves asking thoughtful questions about their dreams and ambitions. This demonstrates that you view her as an individual with her own identity and aspirations. Questions about career goals, personal interests, and future plans show respect for her autonomy and intelligence. These conversations create space for her to express herself fully without navigating around preconceived notions of what Filipino women want. Interview data reveals that women across age groups report feeling most connected to partners who practice responsive listening rather than dominant conversation. This means demonstrating that you're absorbing her perspective and responding thoughtfully. Simple techniques like referencing details from previous conversations signal attentiveness that Filipinas particularly value. Maria, a 28-year-old professional from Manila, shared, "What impresses me is when they remember small details from our conversations. Things I mentioned weeks ago that I didn't expect them to notice." This pattern appeared consistently in interviews across different regions and age groups, suggesting that attentive communication transcends other demographic factors in creating meaningful connections. The misalignment of communication styles creates situations where both parties leave conversations with entirely different understandings. A foreign man might believe a date went wonderfully because conversation flowed easily. Meanwhile, his Filipina date might have communicated discomfort through subtle cues he completely missed. Practical applications include giving Filipinas comfortable options in social situations, rather than asking, "Did you enjoy the restaurant?" which might pressure her to give a positive response regardless of her true feelings. Ask, "What kind of food would you like to try next time?" This creates space for honest communication within cultural comfort zones. Developing emotional intelligence in this cultural context requires recognizing that Filipino communication operates on principles that may feel counterintuitive to foreigners. What might seem like a lack of directness is actually a sophisticated system for maintaining harmony and respecting others' feelings. The foreign partner who adapts to this system, rather than expecting his Filipina interest to adopt Western communication norms, demonstrates both cultural respect and relationship wisdom. The balance, romance versus physical connection. When exploring relationships with Filipinas, we inevitably encounter a question that goes beyond surface-level attraction. If forced to choose, would a Filipina prioritize a beautiful romantic date experience or exceptional physical intimacy? This question, while common in cross-cultural dating discussions, fundamentally misunderstands the integrated nature of connection in Filipino culture. Rather than representing competing priorities, these elements form complementary aspects of a meaningful relationship. The very framing of this question as an either-or proposition creates a false dichotomy that fails to capture Filipino relationship values. For most Filipino women, emotional connection and physical intimacy exist as interconnected parts of a holistic relationship experience, like two sides of the same coin, inseparable and mutually reinforcing. This perspective stands in contrast to approaches that evaluate physical and emotional aspects independently. This misconception often stems from viewing Filipino dating culture through a Western lens. In reality, meaningful connection in Filipino relationships encompasses both romantic gestures and physical chemistry, with each enhancing the other in a harmonious dance rather than competing for prominence. Research into relationship progression among Filipino couples reveals patterns that illuminate this dynamic. Studies conducted in Cebu identified gender differences in relationship development. Males typically engage in physical behaviors earlier than females and progress through emotional relationship stages more quickly. This creates different expectations around both romantic connection and physical intimacy. For Filipino women specifically, researchers found that the pace of emotional connection significantly influenced the timing of physical intimacy. Women who developed emotional bonds more rapidly were more likely to engage in physical intimacy earlier, highlighting how these aspects function like interlocking gears, one driving the movement of the other. This correlation wasn't as strong for Filipino men, suggesting they sometimes compartmentalize physical and emotional experiences. Traditional values in the Philippines have generally discouraged premarital intimacy for women, but attitudes are gradually shifting, particularly in urban areas. This evolution occurs alongside changes in dating behaviors, demonstrating how physical and emotional aspects transform together within the cultural landscape. The research consistently reveals that commitment and loyalty create the foundation for both romantic and physical aspects to flourish. Filipino women emphasize commitment as a core relationship value, establishing an environment where emotional and physical connections develop meaningfully within the security of partnership. The emphasis on romance enhances physical connection rather than diminishing it. Filipinas appreciate expressions of love through thoughtful gestures, recognizing that romance builds the trust that makes physical intimacy more meaningful. Cultural values reinforce this through various expressions of care and attention. Bumble's recent research provides valuable context, showing that 65% of Filipino women prioritize finding partners who demonstrate emotional consistency, reliability, and clear life goals. This preference for stability creates a secure foundation where both romantic expression and physical connection develop naturally, The same study revealed another illuminating statistic. 55% of women in the Philippines identify as romantics, who love love. However, this romantic nature now includes what researchers term micromance, smaller, personal behaviors like sharing inside jokes or creating playlists. While grand gestures are appreciated, these everyday expressions of affection hold particular significance in building connection. Perhaps most revealing is that 52% of Gen Z Filipino singles agree that geeking out on something together is a form of intimacy. This perspective expands intimacy beyond traditional romantic gestures and physical connection to include shared passions and experiences. For many younger Filipinos, meaningful connection encompasses various interactions that build closeness and understanding. These insights reveal a relationship ecosystem where multiple forms of intimacy, emotional, intellectual, experiential, and physical, contribute to satisfying partnerships. Like a garden where different elements nourish each other, these aspects of connection grow together rather than in competition. For foreign men seeking relationships with Filipinas, understanding this integrated approach proves more productive than determining which aspect to prioritize. Building emotional connection through consistent, thoughtful gestures creates the trust and security that allows physical intimacy to develop naturally and meaningfully. This approach aligns with Filipino cultural contexts that value relationships developing at an appropriate pace. The emphasis on building trust and emotional connection first enhances physical chemistry by ensuring it occurs within a framework of mutual respect. Development timelines vary significantly among individuals based on factors like age, personal values, family background, and religious commitment. The consistent element is the connection between emotional and physical intimacy, with each supporting and enhancing the other. For many Filipinas, physical intimacy represents an expression of established emotional connection rather than a separate component. This differs from dating cultures where physical chemistry might be assessed early as a compatibility factor. In Filipino relationship dynamics, physical connection typically grows from and reinforces the emotional foundation. This insight explains why the question of preference between romantic experiences and physical connection doesn't resonate with many Filipinas. It attempts to separate aspects of relationships they experience as fundamentally interconnected. A more relevant question explores how these elements complement each other within successful relationships and how cultural context shapes expectations around their development. The research consistently points to a relationship approach where emotional connection, demonstrated through consistent care, creates the foundation for meaningful physical intimacy, not prioritizing one over the other, but recognizing how they work together in fulfilling partnerships that honor Filipino cultural values while meeting individual needs for connection. So what have we learned on this journey? The key isn't choosing between romance or physical connection. It's understanding that both are complementary elements that unfold naturally within Filipino cultural frameworks. The traveling Frenchman wisely notes that successful relationships with Filipinas are built on genuine understanding, patience, and respect for her values. This means embracing pakikisama, harmonious social relationships, and respecting her family. Develop cultural awareness and adapt to differences. When you approach with authentic respect for her individual nature and cultural context, everything falls into place. Are you ready to build a relationship that honors both your desires and her cultural heritage?